folks, there is a bill that was signed by the South African Parliament and the South African government against all the illegal migrants, against all the undocumented migrants and people living in South Africa, against the Nigerians, the Zimbabweans, and so on. And the so-called bill has been explained by the Minister of Home Affairs, Aaron Motsoaledi, that explains that they've given the power to the immigration officer to decide of the fate of every migrant who is seeking asylum in South Africa. They have the right to decide on your stay in South Africa. They have the right to decide if they have to arrest you. The South African government is not aware of the violation of human rights on the bill that has been signed. It is the constitutional rights of every South African to defend their country, the integrity of their territory and their nation. But to arrest someone, to keep them on a jail cell for 90 days, for 120 days, I think that's a violation of human rights. What I can suggest to the South African government is that they should be able to allow every person who's illegal in their territory, who is able to cover for their own bill, to pay for their own bill, that will allow them to leave the country as soon as possible. Because what's the point of keeping someone in their territory for 90 days, for 120 days, while you are making the necessary arrangement, and you have to feed the person, you have to take care of the person, and at the end of the story, you've got to send the person back home. I believe that if a foreign national who's undocumented, who is in the police custody or in South African prison, they should allow the people who are able to cover for their own bill, to cover for their own expenses, to pay for their flight ticket, to leave the country immediately. And that will help the people to leave their territory. And I urge the South African government, as a defender and a fighter of human rights, to respect human rights and to adhere to the protocols and the international law and the rights of migrants, the right to live in a foreign land, the right to migrate. That is very, very important. There is an act that governs everything that I've mentioned here, and I urge all the Africans to look at the situation of migrants in South Africa so that we can be able to assist. And I urge all the other African nations and every other organization that fights for the freedom of movement, the freedom of human being and human rights in the world, to look at the situation of migrants, illegal migrants, and foreign nationals living in South Africa. No African is a foreign person in the African continent. The Westerns decided to unite themselves. They say we have to unite against these people from other continents that are growing so stronger. And they've decided to allow every European to move freely in the European territory. But this is not what we notice in Africa. African people have decided to live in worlds apart. It's becoming very difficult for an African to live in Africa, which is not normal. And if it's the new normal that you call it, I'll urge all the Africans to wake up. Let's wake up from our sleep, because an African can never be a foreign person in the African continent, in the African soil. And what I am fighting for is the unity of Africans. I am fighting for the right to move freely in the land, in the continent, and to allow every African to be free in the continent. It is very important. Let's not make our continent a living hell. Let's promote unity in the continent. Let's promote peace in the continent amongst us as African brothers and sisters.